At 56 years old, I did something most people told me not to do. From the outside, my life looked fine. I had a steady job, a regular paycheck, a routine I'd followed for decades. Nothing was wrong in the obvious sense, but almost every morning I woke up with a quiet heaviness I couldn't explain.
I wasn't unhappy in a dramatic way. I wasn't broke. I wasn't failing. I was just tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes. The kind that comes from doing the same thing for too long while slowly realizing it no longer fits who you are. For years, I told myself this was normal. That this was just what adulthood looked like. You work, you cope, you wait for weekends, you wait for holidays, you wait for retirement. And one day, while sitting in traffic on a perfectly ordinary morning, I had a thought that wouldn't leave me alone. Is this really how I want to spend whatever time I have left? The life I was supposed to be grateful for. I didn't grow up with big dreams of escaping the system. I wasn't chasing freedom or early retirement. I followed the path most people followed. Finish school, get a job, pay bills, be responsible. Over time, I moved up. My income improved. There were benefits, predictability, a sense of security. But somewhere along the way, work stopped being something I did and became something that owned my time. Every hour of the day was accounted for, every movement tracked, every decision reviewed. Targets, metrics, deadlines, constant pressure to justify my existence on a spreadsheet. I wasn't lazy, I wasn't ungrateful, I was just slowly disappearing inside a life that looked respectable. Sunday evenings were the worst, that familiar tight feeling in the chest, the mental countdown to Monday morning. I'd lie in bed thinking about emails I hadn't received yet, conversations that hadn't happened yet, problems waiting for me before the day even started. I told myself, just keep going. This is what you do. The moment things shifted. The thing that finally forced me to pay attention wasn't money, it was my health. I started noticing small changes at first. Poor sleep, constant tension, weight creeping up, grabbing fast food because I was too busy. A drink in the evening turned into two, then into a habit. When my doctor told me my numbers were heading in the wrong direction, it shook me more than I expected. Not because I was shocked, but because deep down I already knew. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was trading my body for stability and calling it a fair deal. That's when it hit me. What's the point of earning a living if you're slowly losing your life in the process? The decision no one thought I'd make. I didn't sit down and plan this for months. There was no spreadsheet, no 5-year roadmap. One morning, I woke up and realized I couldn't do it anymore. I called my boss and said I was handing in my notice. There was silence on the other end of the line. People told me I was crazy. They said, just take a break, stick it out a little longer. You're too close to retirement. What they didn't understand was this. Quitting wasn't the brave part, staying was. The reality I faced after quitting. Here's the part people don't romanticize. I had $20,000 saved. That's it. No pension I could access, no passive income, no backup plan waiting in the wings. At 56, $20,000 isn't freedom money, it's decision money. Enough to breathe, not enough to be careless. The first few weeks felt oddly peaceful. Then reality set in. Every purchase suddenly mattered. Every bill felt louder. I realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in having a job. When someone asked, "What do you do?" I didn't know how to answer. That was uncomfortable. Learning to survive without panic. My first goal wasn't to build a new life. It was simple. Don't burn through your savings. I started looking around my house differently. Things I'd owned for years but never used. Stuff I'd convinced myself was important. Drawers full of just in case. I started selling things. Old gear, collectibles, tools, electronics. Items I'd emotionally attached meaning to but didn't actually need. To my surprise, people wanted them. Some of it was worth far more than I expected. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. More importantly, it shifted something in my mind. I realized how much money I'd spent over the years on things that didn't improve my life at all. Letting go felt lighter than buying ever did. Redefining what enough means. One of the most important things I did was sit down and ask myself an honest question. How much do I actually need to live? Not to impress anyone, not to maintain appearances, just to exist calmly. I added up the basics: food, utilities, transportation, a little room for enjoyment. And the number surprised me. It was far lower than the income I'd spent decades chasing. Once I knew my minimal viable income, fear started to loosen its grip. I wasn't trying to get rich, I was trying to get my time back. What changed when money stopped being the center? Here's what no one talks about. When your life isn't built entirely around work, your days feel different. Mornings slowed down. I stopped rushing. I started walking, not for fitness goals or productivity, just to be outside. I slept better, really slept. The constant background anxiety faded. My health numbers improved, without forcing it, without extremes. I wasn't chasing happiness. I was removing what made me miserable. That alone made a bigger difference than any raise ever had. The unexpected truth about freedom. Freedom doesn't feel like excitement. It feels like relief. It feels like not dreading tomorrow, like choosing how to spend your energy, like being present instead of constantly preparing for the next obligation. I didn't suddenly love every day. Life still has stress. But the stress felt natural, not imposed. I wasn't living on autopilot anymore. The hardest part no one warns you about. The hardest part wasn't money, it was identity. For decades, my job had explained who I was. Without it, I had to rebuild that understanding from scratch. That takes time. There were moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I'd made a mistake. But each time I imagined going back, my body reacted before my mind could. Tight chest, restlessness, a quiet no. That's how I knew. What I've learned 1 year later. I'm not here to tell you to quit your job. I'm here to tell you what I learned. Lesson 1, time is more valuable than money. You can earn more income. You cannot earn more life. Lesson 2, you need far less than you think to live well. Most spending is emotional, not practical. Lesson 3, your health is not a side project. It's the foundation everything else sits on. Lesson 4, you don't need permission to change your life. Waiting for approval keeps people stuck forever. The thought that changed everything. When you reach your 50s, something uncomfortable becomes impossible to ignore. You've lived more years than you have left. That realization can scare you, or it can free you. For me, it did both. I don't know exactly where this path leads, but I know one thing with certainty. I no longer wake up wishing time would pass faster, and that alone tells me I made the right decision.
If you're watching this and feeling that quiet exhaustion, that sense that your life looks fine but doesn't feel right, you're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You might just be listening to a truth you've been ignoring for too long. This isn't advice, it's just my story, and what happened after I quit the rat race at 56 with only $20,000 saved.